The Expanse. Folks, if you're a fan of sci-fi and you don't know about The Expanse, I think you owe it to yourself to immerse yourself in this universe. Specifically, I would recommend watching the TV show. It is one of my favorite shows of all time. But upcoming is actually a AAA game set in this universe. And the best way I can explain The Expanse is that it's somewhat Mass Effect-esque, except it's set during a time when humans are just discovering the mass relays. It's kind of that vibe where they're just kind of starting to make contact with extraterrestrial life forms, and the mysteries are kind of starting to unravel in regards to like what's out there in the universe. And it's just this really awesome, gritty sci-fi setting that's got a lot of political intrigue that's happening across the solar system among clashing factions, and there's all these compelling characters who have different agendas, and it's just kind of this perfect setting for an action sci-fi RPG. Now, this video is sponsored by Owlcat Games, the developers of this title, but all opinions on this are my own. There's a trailer that they kind of showed me early on for me to check it out, and you know, what I'm seeing right now is pretty exciting stuff. Obviously, we'll still have to wait and see how it plays. I'd love to see like an extensive gameplay video down the line, but there are a lot of great glimpses highlighting just, I think, a lot of potential with a game like this. It also looks visually gorgeous. The art direction is very authentic to the visual language that the show established. And I'd love to first check the trailer out so you can see what I mean, and just really spotlight why the setting really works for a AAA kind of RPG experience. Here we go. Bosmang. So that's a term used by a faction called the Belters.
Zafar, pull up NavTech.
Just a sec. Got it.
It's their way of saying boss, essentially.
We gonna find out about your Kopang right quick, okay?
Just want to do him justice. Stuck his neck out for us. Least we can do is get him out alive.
We've got big enough guns to make justice, all right?
Oh, Michael. To a man with a hammer, just about everything looks like a nail.
Aim for show. Time to say oh yeah with our hammer.
Yeah, so much of The Expanse is about bringing characters from all these different factions
Brace yourselves. We're going for a spin.
and them forming unlikely alliances. Also, I love the way space combat in the setting doesn't look like spaceships that look like planes flying through the air, but like it's got that sense of like they're in space, and the objects like spaceships move like they're in space. The way ship combat is kind of being showcased is already very authentic. The music, very much in line with what they did with the show. The premise. The aesthetic.
Zafar, did you get a signal?
After the large haul down this corridor, they shut down this part of the facility.
Like, this is legit AF.
Arrival.
Fine. Let's deal with those guys first.
In your loader. They never look up.
And I think some of what's going to be showcased here is each character's combat capabilities,
You were right. They shut down this.
some of the skills and abilities that they have, and what they contribute to the team. This is a companion-based third-person action RPG shooter.
Hold on, I'm coming! I'll cover you.
And so that's probably one of the skills. You've got a guy with a shield. That's probably a class of character who will help you out with more defensive maneuvers alongside skills like the shoulder turret.
I can't see shit from here.
The bird up high shall be thine eyes.
You've got a class that has a drone, you know.
What the hell happened here?
Ooh, yeah, and that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is someone who's been infected by what's called a protomolecule. And so much of the premise of The Expanse is based around the mystery surrounding what the proto-molecule is. The seemingly like alien, infectious like substance of sorts. And then this is actual gameplay, or like pre-alpha gameplay footage. And yeah, there's just this level of authenticity to the setting. And then the visual fidelity is actually up there.
Still breathing.
Like, this is... The destructible environments there was pretty impressive. But yeah, the ambition surrounding this game just shows a lot of promise. And I desperately am hoping for them to deliver an experience worthy of the setting, because the potential that this setting has to be a really compelling action RPG is truly immense. Now, there's some details that the developers shared with me in regards to like what the plot, kind of the synopsis of the plot is, and some of the things you can expect from a gameplay standpoint. So this game, The Expanse: Osiris Reborn, takes place roughly around Season 2. I think it covers the events of Seasons 1 through 3, but kind of Season 2 is kind of where the focus is, specifically the Eros incident. Now, what is the Eros incident, you ask? Well, there's a part of me that wants to just explain it, but I'd rather not spoil it. I think if you haven't seen the show, you owe it to yourself to like at least watch through Season 2 and then tell me that you don't want to keep watching. But this is a story that kind of takes place in parallel to that incident. Like, while that's happening, there'll be things happening with you and your crew, the character that you're gonna kind of custom make and go on adventures with. But all I'll say is that the Eros incident is a really pivotal and really cool point in the Expanse's story. It culminates into a pretty climactic event, and it's around this time that humanity is kind of discovering the possibility of like extraterrestrial life. Not only are the dangers surrounding the proto-molecule being unraveled, but you slowly start to peel the onion layers of like what this thing actually is, where it came from, why it's here. It's this one common antagonistic entity that causes a lot of folks from different factions to rally together. And speaking of factions, there are three main factions in this universe. You have Earth, Mars, and the Belt. So Earth is pretty self-explanatory. It's literally planet Earth. It's governed by the United Nations, and the way they come across is basically they're the most privileged of the factions. They kind of have the best quality of life. Then you've got Mars. So there was this colony that was sent out to Mars, but then after that colony grew, they decided to separate themselves from Earth, gain independence, and then gain self-governance. And the governing body of Mars is the MCR, or the Mars Congressional Republic. They live under harsher conditions, but because of those conditions, they've kind of had to work harder at everything. So they've almost become like more technologically advanced than Earth. They've become more of like a militaristic faction. And then finally, you've got the Belt. And this is kind of the working class faction is the best way I can put it. They kind of mine asteroids and whatnot and provide tons of resources through very risky work. And without the Belt, without them doing what they do, Mars and Earth wouldn't get some of those necessary resources that they do. But at the same time, this being sort of the working class faction, they often feel like they're mistreated, undervalued, and kind of seen as less than human. They feel like they're constantly taken advantage of. And so you've got this governing body, or this kind of group called the OPA, the Outer Planets Alliance, that's kind of taking the Belt and the outer planets and all of the sub-factions within them and kind of bring them together under one banner to both rebel against the current status quo of how poorly they're treated, and also pave the road to kind of standing alongside what are called the Inners. The Inners being people who are within the inner planets, the more privileged factions like Earth and Mars. And so there are all these conflicts when it comes to like class struggles and all these long-standing grudges among these three factions because of their differing ideals and, what they feel privileged to. And there are all these like sub-factions within the major three factions. And it's those conflicts within those factions that lie at the heart of this universe's political depth. And that's like on a more zoomed out level. Once you zoom in, you get those characters who come from these different factions who are very three-dimensional, who are either very primed to kind of execute on the ideals of the factions that they belong in, or some of them start to question some of the ideals that their factions have become accustomed to. And then you've got these characters who do come together into an unlikely alliance. It's a really great setting for a lot of these moral decisions where you can present them as not having any real right or wrong answers. It's more about perspective. It's about what every faction and individual is fighting for, what they believe in, and what measures they want to take to achieve their goals, some more extreme than others. And on top of the kind of conflicts that already exist within these factions, once you introduce the proto-molecule and the potential that possesses in terms of both harming the human race as a whole and also the potential of that being weaponized and whatnot, I mean, you get into this web of intrigue that is rife with storytelling opportunities. Despite its sci-fi setting, this is one of those shows where it feels like the themes that they tackle, the topics that they address, and just the kinds of stories that it tells, they all feel very grounded and relatable and true to, real life and real world elements. So that's kind of the premise. But then when it comes to gameplay, that's still more of a question mark. But there are a couple things that the developers have relate to me, like how you do make your own character, and you can either be an Earther, a Martian, or a Belter. You're the captain of your crew, and I imagine that depending on which background you pick, you'll have different dialogue options, different interactions with different people, and you can form different relationships. That background will kind of close certain doors and open others, depending on which you pick. They did confirm that a big part of the experience is companion characters who have their own ideals and loyalties and motivations. It's about forming relationships with them, and those relationships can shift based on decisions. There are definitely inspirations being drawn from the Mass Effect video games, and I don't see that as a bad thing. A Mass Effect style game, but set in the Expanse universe, to me, that's a very compelling proposition. And then when it comes to combat, it is a third-person shooter action RPG. You can bring two companions, similar to Mass Effect. You can issue commands to them live, and the trailer likely provided some glimpses into some of the abilities that you can command companions to do, whether it's putting up a shield for defense or deploying a drone for scouting or offensive capabilities. And then beyond that, the developers relate to me that some of the locales we'll be visiting include Ganymede, Ceres, Mars, and Luna. And that's probably not all of the settings. I imagine that at some point in this game you might be able to visit Eros, given the time frame in which this particular story is taking place. Eros is just a pivotal aspect to what's going on, so I imagine that could be a potential setting. But yeah, this is going to be an action-adventure game that spans across multiple planets and locales within the solar system. And you're, of course, going to have your own ship with your own crew. I don't know if there's going to be space combat, but I feel like the trailer teased at that. But at the very least, you'll be traversing through space to get from one location to the next, and there are going to be quite a few locales to visit, all of them offering very unique visual aesthetics. And so for now, those are all the details that have been concretely relayed. Everything else, we can only speculate. I think the trailer already shows that they have a really solid skeleton, but now it's about refining everything, making sure that combat is tight and gunplay feels impactful, that the RPG mechanics offer satisfying progression, that role-playing opportunities yield genuinely meaningful choices and impactful stories, that characters you come across are ones who you can get invested in with intriguing backstories. I hope that we get to see just this really expansive setting that has a lot of rewarding exploration with a lot of interesting discoveries and a wide variety of quests and mysteries to solve. I hope the world building does the source material justice. I hope all of the different locations throughout the game are realized in epic fashion. And I feel like that's the level of ambition I'm seeing with this game based on what I'm seeing with the trailer. Though, of course, at the end of the day, only time will tell. But if the game launches and I play it and it can approach the sensations that I had watching the show in terms of both the intrigue and the awe and the way the show moved me emotionally and intellectually, if it can achieve all of those things but just in an interactive format, I think that, like, for an Expanse fan like me, that would be a dream come true. So yeah, I would say don't sleep on this game. And if you really have no idea what the Expanse is, watch the show and you'll see what I mean, why the Expanse is so perfect for this genre of video game. I hope they knock this one out of the park. For now, though, you can check out the trailer yourself by using my link below. But genuinely, I am thrilled that this is a project that is being pursued. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on this trailer of The Expanse. If you don't know what The Expanse is, looking at the trailer, what's your first impression of it? And if you are a fan of The Expanse like me, looking at the trailer, what's your first impression of it? Does it look like it's living up to The Expanse legacy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.